I think AI and data analytics is something that is significantly changing the oil and gas way of operations, but also how increasingly new initiatives are being thought about, right? And when I say new initiatives, this is not just projects or plants, but also internally how they're managing their business, right? So, see, data has been always the foundation of oil and gas. There is huge reams of data, whether it is in exploration and production, geophysical, geological, reservoir data, refinery, as you set up a refinery, the amount of data that comes out from the operations of the plant, and then now increasingly on the customer side, when you look at the marketing side, right? How much petrol, diesel you and I are consuming, how much LPG is being consumed at home, how much gas is being consumed at home. So data was always the foundation. What is increasingly happening is now trying to access that data to get analytics and insights on top of that, to either do your operations better, to set up a new project better or more efficiently, or service us as customers that much more better. So I think that is increasingly happening. Now AI is really what I would say is the wonder kid in the block, right? What it is really bringing in is some insights which even existing data technologies and analytics was not able to bring, using large amounts of data, but actually connecting dots that we were not able to do, right? Plus, I think the other important thing of AI is accessibility. In chat GPT, our ability to access, so you could have Googled something before, but by asking in a natural language that what was the last time that, the oil prices went down and what was the impact in India. You can ask some this which is across a period, across different regions, and hence the impact that you would come in. So I think there is significant. And now if I bring it back to the opportunities you asked, again, it's across the whole cycle, right? It is the opportunities are across providing better services to customers, better options to your employees in terms of their internal services. How do you ensure that your healthcare is taken care of, which is provided by the company? How your safety is taken care of if you're at the plant? So it's a lot about the stakeholders and the customers. Some customers are external, but some are internal as well. And then, of course, how you do your existing business and operation. So I think opportunities are absolutely across the life cycle. And the benefits that you get, I would say, are in two words: accessibility and the forward-looking insights that you can then factor into your next growth. It's an interesting question. See, I think energy as a whole, if we see, and not just oil and gas, because oil and gas is part of energy. There is renewable energy, there is coal based energy as well. And in fact, in one of the panels that was discussed in the ET oil and gas conference was around the fact that the energy mix is changing but slowly, right? Now what that means is there are multiple fuel options, investment is flowing in. I think as the energy mix itself is changing, the investments in each of those fuel types is also changing. It is significantly more on the renewable side, and it is honestly required there, because as we heard, renewable is less than 5% of the energy mix, right? How do you change that 5% to say 10% and then eventually to say a 50%? It is happening because if you say that we are currently let's say close to 350 400 gigawatts of capacity, uh, all new capacity is mostly coming out as renewable. Now what will happen is, as more and more such capacity becomes renewable, the existing percentage goes down, right? Now what that is happening is the investment is flowing into there, but what you still need is investment in some of those to balance it out, because renewable does not apply throughout the day. You will need some balancing power. You will need investment in battery and storage technologies that was coming in. So we are clearly seeing investment happening throughout, clearly much more on the renewable end of the spectrum, still some fair bit in oil, more in gas, and it's genuinely a spectrum. It's like if you look at a rainbow, the greener side of the rainbow is getting more, but it's not that the others are not. And you genuinely need some of that investment, because without that, the rainbow will collapse. Because if you have half of a rainbow, it's still not a rainbow, right? So you need all of that spectrum to really support the energy transition going forward. So I think investment is there. I think it's a question of how do you bring it in the right form in the different segments of the energy spectrum to really have that balanced growth that we are talking about. So I think green hydrogen is, I mean, it's literally being talked about as the fuel of the future, right? But I think the question is, when is that future? it's so it's I think the good part about green hydrogen is it is a molecule. right? It's a gas. I mean, so it's a lighter gas, but you can see it. Electrons you can't see, right? Because I mean, it's too small for anyone to really look at it. So to that extent, if you are able to create green hydrogen, you're actually harnessing the power of electricity and capturing it in a molecule, which we are very comfortable with, right? We are traditionally been comfortable with coal, we've been comfortable with oil because it's an actual substantial molecule. Similarly, gas, hydrogen is the next evolution thereof, right? So the future is clearly that it is the fuel of the future. Coming to the question of where do you see it coming in and where does oil and gas play a role? Oil and gas is already consuming hydrogen, by the way, right? It is the diesel that we get is hydro treated, right? And hydrocracked. So all of these elements are already happening, but that hydrogen was coming from fossil fuel, which is gas, right? But and while that will continue along with, say, carbon capture, and you will have again different colors of hydrogen. So you have blue hydrogen and green hydrogen, and then you have gray hydrogen, which is the original gas-based hydrogen that was there. Now, to make green hydrogen happen, because it takes renewable electricity and electrolyzing process, and that itself has multiple technologies, we believe that the current cost is not quite viable, because what you produce from gas, which is fairly available, to renewable, which is still slightly costly, but electrolyzer technology being expensive, and the efficiencies thereof in that process, I think that bridge has to be captured a little bit through things like blue hydrogen, where you use gas, but then you capture the carbon produced from that process. So it's blue, not green yet. So that's a transition step. Oil and gas already consuming green hydrogen, blue hydrogen could be an intermediate step. And I think the good part about green hydrogen is that it is an industrial product to start with. You and I will not start consuming green hydrogen because there is no consumer application of green hydrogen. The closest consumer application would be, for example, if you have green hydrogen blended in gas, or you would have green hydrogen coming into vehicles, fuel cell vehicles, but that is still further out because we are still grappling with electric vehicles. Now changing that electric to a hydrogen vehicle will take some time. So that is where we see it as a 10 to 20 year phenomena. So if you see electric is in this decade is electrical, the decade after that potentially would be hydrogen and green hydrogen, because hydrogen already exists. So for that consumer perspective to happen, the industrial transition to green hydrogen will be faster, where refineries will start using it because they are already using hydrogen, but instead of grey hydrogen, they start using green hydrogen. Similarly, steel can use green hydrogen, fertilizers can green hydrogen, and equally green ammonia, which is a derivative from green hydrogen. So I genuinely see adoption of the industrial consumption of green hydrogen within this decade, right? Definitely from 2030 onwards, and the consumer consumption, that is you and me, probably another decade out from there. So that is really where it is the fuel of the future. It's just that the future depends from segment to segment coming in, and oil and gas will be one of the forerunners of adopting green hydrogen. So I think this is a great initiative, right? It brings all the right stakeholders, the ecosystems. PwC is happy to be a knowledge partner to ET Energy World for this initiative. We anyway work extensively with the oil and gas stakeholders. Like I was discussing in one of the panels, we work with the government and the regulators. We work with the upstream oil and gas producing companies. We work with the oil and gas transportation companies. We all work with the oil and gas marketing and distribution companies as well. So I think it brings this whole chain together, right? And it provides I would say, a informal setting for discussions, and I would say many to many discussions, because one-to-one discussions we always have, but facilitating this many to many discussions, hopefully it leads to some enriching takeaways like I was talking away, and then getting into actions from there on. But thankful to ET for this event.